Mexico is a vast country with a large population and a good economic potential. However, its development is severely hampered by widespread corruption and criminality, especially the smuggling activities of the powerful drug cartels. This is hampering Mexico's growth and is preventing it from becoming a regional power. Moreover, the recent troubles in the relations with the United States are also slowing its rise. I'm your host Kasim, welcome to another KJ vid. In this video we will discuss the geopolitics of Mexico and its relationship with the United States. Just before we begin, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can help to fund our videos and make KJ vids self-sustainable. Sadly, due to the nature of our videos, YouTube consistently demonetizes them as they apparently fit in the politically sensitive category. You can also access our full reports and exclusive content by becoming our Patreon member from as little as $1 per month. Analyzing Mexico's geography provides important information. Including its territorial waters, Mexico extends for around 1.9 million square kilometers, making it the 13th biggest state in the world. To the north, along the border with the US, it stretches for 1,000 kilometers from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean. But it gradually gets thinner, moving to the south towards Belize and Guatemala. Plains are present only along the coasts and in the Yucatan Peninsula, but the whole central part of the country consists of highlands that make it difficult to penetrate in the interior, notably following a north-south route. However, this also complicates transportation and poses an obstacle to economic development. To the sides, Mexico is protected by the sea. This also brings opportunities for maritime trade and facilities power projection. All these factors mean that Mexico is well protected from external threats, and in addition, all the states in its surroundings, with the notable exception of the US, are smaller and weaker than it. And even though America is overwhelmingly more powerful than Mexico, it does not pose a threat to its national security because the two states hold generally positive relations and there is no serious possibility of war today. To sum up, Mexico's geography makes it safe from external invasions, but in terms of economic development it presents a mixture of positive and negative factors that, combined with its socio-economic problems, are slowing down its growth. As a matter of fact, the Mexican economy is expanding below its potential, and yet the country is expected to become the world's 7th largest economy by 2050. Mexico has a population of almost 126 million people, 44% of which is below 24 years old. Most people live in the central part of the country and especially around the capital. 80% of Mexicans live in cities and the figure is growing. Its economy is almost entirely based on services and industry, and tourism is an important sector. It has a good transportation network and notable progress has been made in water supply and sanitation. It hosts significant oil reserves and is one of the world's largest producers. Unemployment is low, being at just above 3% in 2017. In terms of fiscal policy, the public and external debt are moderate, standing at 46% and 38% of the GDP respectively, whilst the fiscal deficit has been successfully reduced to just 1% of the economy's size. Mexico's economy grew of 2% in 2017. But in spite of the scope of the recent reforms, this represents a downturn from the 5% rate reached in 2015. This has largely been caused by a contraction of industrial production combined with a sensible decline in investments. This was in turn influenced by several factors. First, the trade quarrels with the US, Mexico's main economic partner. These are the result of Trump's decision to scrap the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, to negotiate a new deal. Secondly, a slowdown of the US economy itself, and thirdly, incertitude over Mexico's own domestic policies. As the industrial output declined while domestic demand rose, the inflation rate soared from 2.8% in 2016 to 6% in 2017 in terms of consumer prices. This forced Mexico to raise its interest rates, with negative consequences on investments and on export due to the resulting appreciation of the peso. As such, Mexico's GDP is expanding at a slower pace than in the past few years, and its economic future is uncertain. In any case, Mexico has notable problems that undermine its growth pattern. A considerable portion of Mexicans work in the informal sector, where little transparency favours tax evasion and other forms of fiscal fraud, with negative effect on the state's ability to collect revenues. This phenomenon is closely linked with persisting poverty, an unequal distribution of wealth, and gender inequalities. Moreover, Mexico is plagued by widespread corruption, which causes enormous inefficiencies and considerable money losses. But the most important problem is probably criminality. The country's powerful drug cartels are engaged in a fierce war to contend the territory and control the lucrative narcotics smuggling, which results in a high homicide rate. They are also engaged in many other criminal actions like extortion, kidnapping, prostitution, and more. The government has made significant efforts to combat them, but paradoxically its success in decapitating some of the most powerful organizations has further fragmented the cartels into smaller factions, which has made conflict more intense and violent. Combined with an unreliable judicial system, this does not favour Mexico's investment environment and damages its economic growth. Such domestic problems sensibly limit the country's geopolitical role, and cross-border illicit traffic is also a central matter in US-Mexican relations. Considering the size of its population and its economy, it would be expected from Mexico to play a more important geopolitical role. While it is part of multiple international organizations in Latin America, it is less present abroad than other smaller countries. Even its military is fairly weak for a state of this size. The army, while being quite large, has no tanks and is almost entirely composed of infantry units optimized for internal operations, notably against the drug cartels. The Air Force has no fighter planes, but only light attack aircraft. The Navy's bulk consists of 5 aged frigates that are going to be substituted by newer vessels, the first of which was commissioned in November 2018. And finally, no submarines are in service. This means that Mexico's military has almost non-existent power projection capabilities, which clearly limits the country's international role. This is partly because Mexico has no external threats to face and partly because it needs to concentrate on domestic issues, notably on fighting the drug lords. In this context, Mexican-US relations have become more strained since the Trump administration has entered into office. One problem is trade. Commerce between the two countries has been regulated by NAFTA for more than 2 decades, but Trump deemed it contrary to US economic interests and pushed for a renegotiation. The new deal, signed in late November 2018, takes the name of United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement and is yet to enter into force. As observed before, Trump's trade policies have already affected Mexico's economic performance. As a matter of fact, the US is by far Mexico's main trading partner, accounting for 51% of imported product, and most importantly for 73% of exports in 2016. In this regard, the new agreement seems less advantageous for Mexico. In the automotive sector, in order to be exempt from tariffs, it requires that 75% of autos be made in North America, and 40 to 45% of this must be made by workers earning at least $16 per hour. This deal significantly reduces the possibility to use special arbitration mechanisms for investments in Mexico, a move that is meant to ensure the application of US norms. The USMCA also raises the threshold for duty-free shipments to $117 from $50 and includes provisions against currency manipulation. The main positive point for Mexico and Canada is that in case the deal is renewed, it will last for another 16 years instead of just 5. The other main divergence point is illegal immigration and the drug inflow from Mexico to the US. In regards to the former, whilst most migrants cross the border to work, it is true that a considerable part becomes engaged in criminal activities, often related to drug smuggling. The huge American market is the main source of revenues for the cartels, many who operate directly on US territory. The authorities on both sides are cooperating to curb these illicit traffics, but until now the efforts have not been sufficient. To solve the problem, Trump has been long advocating for a wall to be built at the border, but this solution is unlikely to solve the problem. While regulating the border is a common interest for the two countries, and in this sense a barrier can be useful, it should be reminded that it can be bypassed in several ways, and even with advanced surveillance sensors, it can do little if there are no rapid deployment patrol ready to intervene when a breach is detected. The only true solution is to enact a bilateral comprehensive plan to solve the socio-economic problems that are element criminality in Mexico. As many emerging economies, Mexico has several challenges to face. While it benefits from a large young population, quite good economic credentials and a safe international environment, it is nevertheless growing below its potential due to criminality and corruption. Such problems are to be tackled, but progress is being made. In spite of everything, the country's future prospects are rather positive, and maybe this will allow Mexico to become more active at the international level in the years to come. That's all for today guys, thanks for watching another KJ vid. What are your views on Mexico's relations with the US? We would love to hear your views in the comments below, especially if you are from Mexico. Finally, don't forget to support us on Patreon so we can produce more of these geopolitical reports. That's all for today, see you next time.